All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and, I've got to say, pretty complex worldview from our source material. It's all about connecting some of the biggest legal debates we're having right now to the very foundation of American identity, and even to ancient prophecy. It's going to be quite a ride, so let's get into it. Right off the bat, the source hits us with this really provocative question. This is the modern dilemma that kind of sets the stage for everything we're about to explore. It forces you to stop and think. You know, what does our legal system actually consider real and why? It's a heck of a starting point.
So here's the game plan for how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at this idea of legal fictions inside the justice system. Then we'll get into the philosophy of where our rights even come from. After that, we'll see how this whole thing, according to the source, creates a major crisis in our courtrooms. And then we're going to tie it all together with a big picture look at America's role in prophecy.
Okay, so first up, justice and legal fictions. Let's really dig into the source's critique of what it calls a central paradox, a real contradiction at the heart of modern American law. Now, this really lays out the core dilemma perfectly. On one side, you have police stings using a totally made-up online profile of a child. There was never a real kid in danger. The victim is fictional. And yet, the punishment for interacting with that profile can be decades in prison, a very real punishment. Then, on the other side, you've got the zinc spark. It's this literal flash of light that scientists can see at the exact moment of conception. Life is scientifically verifiably real. But, as the source argues, its legal protection is often fictional. It's a powerful comparison.
And the source really doubles down on this. The argument is that when the state itself invents the victim for a crime, it's not really enforcing the law anymore. It's moved into fabricating it. Justice becomes, and this is the source's term, a kind of legal theater. The government is writing the script, playing the parts, and then prosecuting the whole thing.
So, this whole legal puzzle naturally leads us to a much, much deeper question. Where do our rights actually come from in the first place? Let's unpack the source's philosophical answer to that one. And here it is. The source grounds its entire worldview in this single powerful phrase from the Declaration of Independence. The point it makes is that this isn't just some nice-sounding poetic language. No, according to the source, this is the philosophical bedrock of the entire American experiment, and it explicitly names the origin of our rights. So what does unalienable even mean? Well, the source defines these rights as things that are just permanent. They're absolute. And the reason they're absolute is because they don't come from a government or a king or a court. They're endowed by a creator, which puts them way beyond the reach of any human authority to mess with. This table just lays out the two competing worldviews so clearly. On the one hand, you have the Declaration's view. Rights come from a creator, so they're permanent and can't be taken away by people. But then you have what the source calls the atheistic worldview, where rights are just a human idea, a social agreement, and, well, if we humans made them up, we can also change them or redefine them or even get rid of them. That difference, that's everything. Okay, so follow the logic here that the source lays out. Step 1. To be an American is to agree with the nation's founding charter, right? The Declaration. Step 2. If you agree with the Declaration, you're agreeing with its core idea, that rights come from a creator. Step 3. An atheist, by definition, doesn't believe in a creator. So step 4, the source concludes that an American atheist who affirms the Declaration is essentially living in a logical contradiction. It's a bold argument. So that's the big philosophical idea. But what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, according to the source, it looks like a full-blown crisis in the American justice system. The argument goes like this. When anyone involved in the legal process, a judge, a prosecutor, even a juror, personally rejects that core idea of creator-endowed rights, they are fundamentally out of sync with the very system they're supposed to be upholding. And the source claims this isn't just a small problem. It's a structural crisis that undermines the whole thing. And to make this less abstract, the source includes a personal story, a case study. It talks about an experience where basic rights, like the right to face your accuser, were supposedly just bypassed. It describes a plea deal being accepted without fully understanding the lifelong impact, suggesting a system that's more about processing people than protecting them. So, what's the solution? The source proposes this question as a kind of coherence test. Now, it's careful to say this is not a religious test. That would be unconstitutional. It's a test of philosophical consistency. It's basically asking anyone in a legal role, hey, does your personal worldview actually line up with the founding principles of the nation's laws you're enforcing? All right, for this last part, we are zooming way, way out. This is where all those different threats, the law, philosophy, justice, all get woven together into this massive prophetic interpretation of history, with America sitting right at the center of it. Now, the historical framework for this whole idea comes from the book of Daniel's prophecy about a sequence of world empires. You might have seen this before. It starts with Babylon, the head of gold, and goes all the way down to a final divided kingdom that grows out of that fourth empire, Rome, the kingdom of iron. And here's the central historical claim of the entire worldview, that Rome, the Iron Kingdom, never really went away. Sure, the empire itself collapsed, but its system, its way of doing law, its model of government, its global military footprint, that system lived on. And the argument goes, that system was eventually inherited by the United States. And the source points to what it sees as direct evidence for this. I mean, some of it is pretty obvious, right? The US Senate, Capitol Hill, they literally have the same names as their Roman counterparts. The source even connects the Statue of Liberty to the Roman goddess Libertas. The idea here is that these aren't just little influences. They're signs of a direct, unbroken lineage. Now, this next piece is absolutely crucial to the whole prophetic puzzle. The source reinterprets that biblical phrase, this generation, or genea. The argument is that it doesn't mean a human lifespan of, say, 40 years. Instead, it refers to the entire continuous Rome-aligned world order, a political and moral family tree, if you will, that's still around today. And finally, this verse from Revelation is what's used to snap it all together. The interpretation here is that a final world power, an eighth king, would show up on the world stage. But it would be of the seven, meaning it would have the same DNA, the same character, the same spirit as the Roman system that came before it. Which brings us right to the final, really provocative question that this entire worldview is built on. The source challenges us to consider, if America really is the modern heir to that Roman system, does that mean that the prophetic generation Jesus mentioned is still here, right now? And will it stay here until all these prophecies are fulfilled? It is a fascinating, and for sure, a challenging idea to wrap your head around.